Okay, go.
Hello, and welcome to What We've Learned in School. I'm your host, Jack Wakefield. Today, we will be covering the topic of satire, a topic that, yes, we did in fact learn in school. Now, I'd like now to go more in depth about it, since it's more relevant in the world that you think. Again, it's no one's fault as to why we didn't go in depth about this, except for Miss Neff's. I don't want to put my hands down. And I didn't feel that we went into enough detail about it. I'm not going to say, be naive, be ignorant. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. Miss Neff. Sorry, something in my throat. We're a more active part of the curriculum. That's a good way of pointing it. Again, it's no one's fault as to why we didn't go over it, Miss Neff's, but I'm just going to express my true feelings toward it. First, let's start with the two geezers, count them two, who are credited with the original forms of satire. If you're not familiar with the original forms of satire, I know we learned this in school, but it's been a while, so I'll just refresh your memory. They're Juvenalian and Horatian. Juvenal he's the guy, should I put this? If you've seen a roast, let's say of Justin Bieber, where they just constantly make fun of him, it's kind of like that. Think of these guys like the 80s rappers of satire. Everything that they did kind of paved the way for future satirists today, but kind of at the same time, no one really knows what they did. You have no idea, because, they're pretty well forgotten to time. Sure, they're about as famous as Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. If you don't know who that is, it's because they were rapping back when rappers wore cowboy hats. That used to be a thing. Now let's jump in and start learning more about them. We'll start with my personal favorite, Juvenile. Again, that's like choosing between Run DMC and Grandmaster Flash. Obviously I'm a Run DMC fan myself, but Grandmaster also had some hits. Juvenile poked fun at the rich and powerful, and also city life in Roman society. I was glad someone realized that living amongst animal feces, unbathed peasants, and modern medicine extending to sticking leeches on people wasn't really the sharpest idea the Romans had. This is coming from the same society who was able to build aqueducts in a coliseum for thousands and thousands of people. Their empire has lasted over 2,000 years because we're still talking about it. They went forever, and they stuck leeches on people. That's how they got rid of the cold. Not the smartest move, Romans. Not the smartest move. I don't want leeches on me. No thanks. I'll stick with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood-style Roman medicine, with a guy in a bird mask giving you health potions. That seems way safer to me. I don't like the idea of other people's blood getting stuck all over me with leeches. I think Africa would agree with me that blood swapping is not the smartest move. That's an AIDS joke if you didn't get it. Juvenal was a military man serving under the Emperor Domitian. I don't know. Who cares? It's Latin. It's dead for a reason. After being promoted to officer, he was denied the chance by the Roman court to continue to be promoted through the ranks. Juvenal believed it was because of favoritism, and he wasn't the most likable guy. He made fun of people. That's what he did. He wrote a letter to the Roman court, and he caught as much flack for it, like NWA caught for and I paraphrase here, in their hit song "Intercourse the Police." They didn't get sent to Egypt. He got sent to Egypt. That would be like sending Ice Cube and Gang to American Samoa for expressing their sexual interest for men of power. It's not right. Juvenal lived in Egypt as a servant, where he published his first cleverly word-titled book, Satire 1 through 5. And if you can guess what it was about satire. He remained there until Domitian, the Roman man, was assassinated. After returning to Rome, he published the remainder of his two books, Satire 6 through 10, and you guessed it, Satire 11 through 15. These books are so great, they probably rival the Lord of the Rings trilogy, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Perhaps one of the most famous lines expressed in his books was Satire number 3. Not the most creative title in the world, but what are you gonna do? The famous line from there is, "But who will guard the guards?" Obviously that's, translated. I don't speak Latin. I'm not gonna try to pronounce that. And Juvenal wasn't really concerned with the well-being of the guards. He was mostly concerned with the fact that the guards had too much power. How are they're getting housed and fed in a city that is overcrowded, there's famine going on. Have you ever tried to grow food in Egypt? It's a desert. You can't grow food. They were trying to grow food. And they got to feed the entire population and the guards all at the same time. Guards are just running amok. They're overprivileged. Juvenal wasn't happy, all right, so he made fun of them. He wrote a satire about it. That's what Juvenalian satire is. All right, it's going to be harshly bashing things. You don't know who he is. His life story is a little combination between Gladiator, the movie Gladiator, and the play Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. This cheeky bloke served under Brutus at Tu Brute. Served under Brutus during that whole little era against, Octavius, who would later become Emperor of Rome under Emperor Augustus. He served as a staff sergeant, and when he returned home from the losing war, he found that his entire farm had been burned to the ground. So rather than pick up his sword in a Maximus-style revolt, he wrote poetry, like any normal Roman would. And his poetry is a lot more passive than Juvenal's, in the sense that if you ever heard Carpe Diem, that's a little famous quote from... Oh, I'm going to read this part out straight from the thing because it's funny. It's actually awful. I get in trouble. It's going to be for this part. Horace has many famous sayings still in use today, such as Carpe Diem, seize the day, and Dulce et Docrium est por partine mori. Are you kidding me? All right, and that translates, loosely, to it is sweet and glorious to die for one's country. This is the slogan for the military. The other is something famous for Robin Williams. I'll give you a hint. No one was prepared to die for the Dead Poets Society. Oh, okay, almost no one. There's that one kid. Okay, if that didn't make sense to you, I'll go ahead and explain it. In the movie The Dead Poets Society, Robin Williams' character is hired as an English teacher at a preppy rich boy school. It's kind of like Hogwarts, but there's just more preppy rich kids and less magicians. It's kind of just pick your poison there. One boy wants to be an actor. All right, that's his dream. But his dad's like, oh, no, son, you can't be an actor. You got to go be a doctor or some other lame white person job that isn't acting. And he's like, no, Dad, I want to be an actor. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. It's going to be cool. No, son, screw you. Can I say screw you? Hey, following under Robin's teachings, Carpe Diem, he decides to seize the day and go after his dreams of acting. Another kid uses this great advice to steal a dude's girlfriend, score one for adultery. The rest of them pretty much just take this advice and, they just create a poem society in a cave where they just kind of recite Emily Dickinson, lesbian in my opinion. The guy tries out auditions for the role for the play, the school play. I think it was like, Robin Hood, Men in Tights or something like that. It doesn't matter. But he gets the lead role, and his parents come to the performance. All right, he tells his dad, Dad, I want to be an actor. I'm acting in this play. And his dad's like, no, a son of mine is acting in a play. Robin, good old Rob, that, hey, I talked to my dad. My dad's okay with me doing this play. He's okay with me chasing his dreams. He's okay with me seizing the day. Good old Rob, being the supporting teacher he is like, great, do the play. So he does the play against his father's wishes. So then his dad shows up at the play and pulls him out, right as the play ends. He gets to, receive none of the credit, and he blew it away. I mean, he was phenomenal. I don't want to really get into the true details, but he was really good. He's a really good actor. He was. And I don't know, he ends up just killing himself in the end. And they all blame Robin for the suicide, which is kind of, messed up in my opinion. He did nothing. He just told him to seize the day, which is great advice unless you plan on killing yourself. Moral of the story. You want to seize the day, don't commit suicide. Back on topic. It's funny because the other saying, it is sweet and glorious to die for one's country, is the slogan for the U.S. military, but it's only funny because when Horace wrote that line, he did not actually mean it is sweet and glorious to die for your country. Think about the time he grew up in. He grew up in the Republic of Rome. All right, that was the first real dictator who got his power by killing everybody and just seizing the throne. So it's kind of like dying for a lost cause. Rome was sort of dying in his mind. He was on the Republic side of Rome that lost. So it was not sweet and glorious to die for your country. But it had fooled the entire U.S. military because no one apparently has a sense of humor there. They actually thought that it meant, hey, it's sweet and glorious to die for your country. And that's kind of what Horatian satire is all about. You don't really know that you're getting made fun of. The Simpsons is a great example of that. The entire show is basically satire. You got to look at how, Homer Simpson's an idiot, yet he works at a nuclear power plant. Mr. Burns runs everything. But at the same, and he's like that classic, excellent. He's a classic millionaire Mongol. That's what he does. He's a corporate scum. I mean, I can't keep making gay jokes, man. I can't.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, who is that? Is that Dave? A classic and famous example of Juvenalian satire is A Modest Proposal, written by the Michael Jordan of satire, Jonathan Swift. And Swift's very modest proposal, he discusses the solution to the very controversial question of the day: what do we do with all the poor people? I mean, this is before Obamacare, so that's a valid question. Swift proposed we all just convert to cannibalism. Of course, no one would eat the adults. Don't be ridiculous. We just eat the children. It's casual. Adults would sell their children. They're babies, technically. I mean, kind of like cattle. It's fine. It's fine. It's casual. It's casual. No parts would go to waste, just like the Indians. I mean, you're using it all. Talking like, human boots, some nice human skin gloves. Every girl wants to get their hands on a nice human skin lingerie. Swift says, and I quote, "I profess in the sincerity of my heart that I have not the least personal interest in endeavoring to promote this necessary work, have no other motive than the public good of my country." Ha. Basically saying he doesn't support this for any other reason other than the fact that it's good for the nation. Get rid of the poor people, let's eat their kids. It's going to slow down the growth. It makes sense. I personally think that's what we should be doing with the population of Alabama. Right. Basically, he doesn't really support the idea of his country. He just wants to be good. Basically, Swift's just saying he doesn't actually support the idea. He just wants to be a good patriot. So watch out, Mel Gibson. You got some competition for Patriot of the Year. Of course, Swift isn't actually serious about this. He doesn't really want to eat the kids. That's what makes it satire. All right? He doesn't think that he doesn't think no one's paying no attention to these poor people. He thinks that we should. So by drawing attention to the fact that we should be eating their kids, you're going to be like, I don't want to. Maybe just giving them money would be a little better than eating them. I think. Hopefully that's the message that he got across. Using another class example. Kurt Vonnegut's Harrison Bergeron is the prime example. And yes, before you ask, we did read this in class too. It's class examples. I'm only saying it because I have to. Trust me. We're about to get into some South Park later. Maybe. He satirizes Americans' desire for equality. Not only, and hold on, I quote, equality before God and the law, but also equality in every which way. This is a good example of Horatian satire because he doesn't come out and say, like, hey, we need equality. He lets people represent it. Like his main character, Harrison Bergeron, a 7-foot 8th grader who's somehow genius, but his plan for overthrowing the government is dancing. Dancing hasn't solved anything. This isn't Footloose. And the writers of Footloose, did they even understand what a small southern town is like? I mean, this town outlawed dancing and rock and roll. And they're and a kid from Chicago, which is going to be a big deal to them because they've never been outside their rural little area, is going to show up and want to dance and jam out to some rock and roll. It's not going to fly to them. Plus, most small southern towns associate male dancing with homosexuality. And I'm not saying that this small town is, going to be necessarily against gay marriage, or all small towns are against gay marriage, against gay couples. But I mean, a town that's willing to outlaw rock and roll and dancing, and you think two guys or gals, I got you, ladies, I'm throwing you in the mix, gender equality and all. You think that, two people of the same sex making out is going to fly? Kevin Bacon getting drugged through the mud is a more likely plot line for this movie. In fact, that's actually a better movie. Footnoose. I call it Footnoose. It's Kevin Bacon working through a 90-minute Purge-style odyssey with his feet bound, getting drugged through the mud by a pickup truck, fighting his way through this small town that is trying to lynch him, because that's what would happen. Woo-hoo. But I digress. Back on point here. I think that, old 7-foot Harrison is representative of America's, free will. And whenever he gets shot in the end, it's kind of just saying like, hey, America, if everyone is equal, you kind of lose the free will. I guess is the best way to put that. You kind of you lose your free will if everybody's equal. It's demonstrated by that. I mean, the most pretty best ballerina is doing just as good as the not so pretty best ballerina. I think that's a good example of Horatian satire. I mean, the whole setting and characters are what is satirical, not the actual plot line of the story. Now let's watch this short 30-second clip of South Park so you can fully understand how awesome this satire actually is. We're back. If you noticed that clip of South Park, it really touched on America's just butchering of helpless animals such as cows and chickens. That's probably got to be one of the most satirical episodes of South Park I've ever seen. And it all just ends up with that final line. Congratulations, son, they're just like us. I guess it'll teach those Japanese twice to start whaling, Ronan Shamu for the rest of us. I go to SeaWorld because I love standing in line with a bunch of minorities, not because I want to watch. Mr. Landcastles. I hear our library has a new DJ booth now. Oh, finally. One more angry letter about not being able to listen to music in the library, and I was going to blow a gasket. Our library has always been a nice sanctuary for the book-loving students here at LT. I, for one, use the library like everyone else does to play Halo and cut class, and now there's just another reason to go. I think I know why you thought the idea of an expensive noisemaker would really just tie the nice, quiet library together. I think it's because you're a dreamer. A dreamer who thought one thing our library missed was a sound system. This sound system really pimped out our library too. All the other schools are going to be jealous when we pull up, bumping these dope beats written by our students. The same students who admire the weird monster sculptures that rest atop the bookcases. The bookcases who collect dust better than the Swiffer ever imagined. I always thought our library budget was the size of the Hillary Clinton supporters' political rally last week. But after the 3D printer was purchased, I realized, and thank the heavens, I was wrong. Thanks for utilizing my parents' tax-paying money for helping our kids relive their 90s fantasies of middle parts, baggy cargos, and playing Spin Doctor. Sincerely, Thomas Jack Wakefield. So if you didn't learn anything about satire in that entire presentation, I don't blame you. I did a very hard job of discussing the entire thing.
Dude, you didn't even get to the point, man.
Dude, whatever, man. It's all in my feminist essay. It's fine.
Dude, what is that? Can you define that word for me?
The feminist is kind of like feminism, but more essay-like, all right? I don't need to take this. I'm done. I'm getting out of here.